The century of humiliation. I was not born in peace. I was born in memory, a memory soaked in blood, ash, and shame. For 100 years, I was not China. I was a carcass. A sick man of Asia, chained, mocked, ravaged. They came in ships with iron mouths. British traders, French missionaries, American generals. They smiled with tea and treaties, then carved me like meat. Opium in my lungs. Silver ripped from my hands. Cities burned under Christian banners. Palaces looted. Emperors humiliated. Sons slaughtered. They took Hong Kong like a prize. They desecrated the Summer Palace. They forced open my ports like a whore's mouth and called it civilization. What did I learn in that time? That the West does not care for harmony. It feeds on submission. That laws mean nothing without power. That weakness invites vultures. I watched Japan rise, then turn on me. They raped, laughed as they butchered children. Used my people as bayonets practice. I begged the world to see, but the world was deaf, or worse, entertained. I do not forget. China does not forget. Our history is not a scroll in a museum. It is written in bone, in the cries of ancestors buried beneath the Yangtze, in the ash that still coats the ruins of Beijing's old heart. For you, the past is nostalgia. For me, it is a vow. They called it the century of humiliation. But that word, humiliation, is soft. What happened to me was not humiliation. It was desecration. I was not simply invaded. I was spiritually They broke my temples, mocked my language, laughed at my poetry, told my children Confucius was a fairy tale and Christ was their new emperor. But I am not a man, and nations remember. Even in silence I was preparing. Even in chains, I was watching. Even as my sons died with no graves, I waited, because one day, the dragon would rise again, and the ones who branded me weak would feel the scorch of my breath. So you ask me why I do what I do. Why I control, surveil, censor, dominate, because I will never again let China kneel. Not to the West, not to anyone. They stole a century from me. I will take 10 in return. The humiliation is over. The awakening has begun. You thought I was dead. You thought I would disappear like an ancient language, like dust in the pages of history. But China does not die. She molts. She sheds her skin and becomes something new. From the ashes of humiliation, I gave birth to something the world feared, something it still does not understand. Revolution. The dragon awoke, not with gold, but with fire and famine. You remember, Mao is a monster, but I remember him as a forge. He took 1 billion broken souls and made them iron. He ripped apart the old China, the feudal lords, the foreign bootlickers, the opium dens, the decaying Confucian rot. He made temples crumble. He made tradition scream. But he did what no emperor could. He united us. One flag, one ideology, one purpose. The West calls it madness. The Great Leap Forward, the Cultural Revolution. Yes, millions died, but we had to starve so our future could eat. We had to bleed so our descendants could walk tall. You count bodies. We count lessons. Do you think America was born clean? How many native bones lie beneath your cities? How many slaves built your White House? Every empire walks through blood before it learns to walk on air. Yes, we silenced dissent. Yes, we erased the past. Yes, we rewrote truth. Because chaos is not freedom. Because disorder is not justice. Because to rebuild China, we had to break her first. We dug into the earth. We poured steel into our veins. We taught 1 billion people to obey, not for tyranny, but for survival. You laugh at our slogans, you mock our propaganda, but we do not sell illusions of individual liberty while your poor sleep in tents beneath skyscrapers. We built equality from starvation. We built power from discipline. We built unity from terror because we had to. You don't get it, do you? The red is not just a color, it's the blood of my people and the flame of their will. When Mao died, he did not vanish, he became myths and myths. They are more dangerous than men. The West gave us humiliation, Mao gave us vengeance. He gave us ideology, and ideology, when wielded by the starving, becomes a weapon more powerful than any bomb. Now, you fear my control, you fear my censorship, you fear the silence in my streets. But that silence is not weakness, it is alignment, it is direction, it is direction, it is destiny. The West has noise. I have purpose, and in the silence, the dragon sharpened its claws. They thought I could only roar in red, but I learned to whisper in green, the color of your dollars, the color of your greed. You opened your markets thinking you were opening mine. You thought I'd become like you, soft, divided, drowning in choices and noise, but you forgot. The tiger may wear a tuxedo, but its teeth remain sharp. So I smiled and opened the door, just enough. I gave you cheap labor. You gave me factories. I gave you compliance. You gave me capital. I watched as your CEOs bowed deeper than any bureaucrat ever had. Nike, Apple, Starbucks, Disney. You gave me your brands. I gave you my numbers. You built your future on my supply chain, and now you can't escape it. From iPhones to semiconductors, from rare earths to solar panels, my shadow sits on your shelves. You taught the world to believe in capitalism, and I made it believe in mine, but I never bought into your freedom, only your formula. And now, look around. Cities, rising from rice paddies, bullet trains, slicing mountains, skyscrapers, stretching across megacities you can't even pronounce. Your children come to my universities, your tech firms beg for my approval, and your politicians, they tremble when I cough. You spent a century building an empire. I built mine in 3 decades. Silently, efficiently, relentlessly. And what did you expect? That I would rise politely, that I would play fair. The game was never fair, not when you bombed Baghdad. Not when you crushed Libya, not when you armed dictators. Then accused me of tyranny. No. I learned from you. You colonized with cannons, I conquer with contracts. You invaded with tanks, I invade with trade. I do not need to drop bombs when I can buy your ports. I do not need soldiers when your corporations kneel at my feet. They say I became a capitalist. But they are wrong. I am still communist. But I used capitalism as a scalpel. Now your debts lie in my hands. Your markets shake at my whispers. Your influencers sing my praises without knowing why. I do not raise my voice. I do not show my sword. I do not need to, because the dragon is awake and it wears a business suit. You still call me president, a face among equals. But let's not pretend anymore. I am not a politician. I am not a servant of the people. I am emperor, not by crown, but by command. Democracy, that circus of slogans and gridlock, it breeds division. It rewards noise. It turns nations into screaming children fighting over poisoned candy. I watched your elections, clowns in red ties, puppets in blue suits, millions spent on ads, while your bridges collapse and your people overdose in silence. You, confused, shouting for strength. I chose silence. When I took power, I did not ask permission. I took what was required. I erased limits on my rule. I removed threats before they whispered. I turned party into throne, because one man must steer the dragon when the storm approaches. You called it tyranny, but your freedom has made you blind. Your youth can't afford homes. Your cities rot. Your culture mocks tradition, mocks strength, mocks order. You handed your nation to chaos and asked me to clap. No. In my China, we still remember how to obey. How to build, how to sacrifice. I crushed dissent because unity demands silence. I censored speech because lies travel faster than truth. I burned corruption because rot spreads faster than flowers. I imprisoned those who threatened stability, not because I feared them, but because the people feared disorder more. You fear the strong man. But the world is not led by kindness. You hold elections, I hold power. You beg for consensus. I command alignment, and now I offer no illusions. I am not Mao. I am something new. I am the software of Confucius running on a supercomputer. I am the party, the nation, the future compressed into one mind, one mouth, one will. They say power corrupts. But what if the corrupted world needs a force too brutal to bend? China does not need a father. She needs a spine. And I am the spine made flesh. History will not judge me kindly, but it will judge me necessary. Let the West mock me. Let the exiles call me monster. Let the timid cry from their comfortable cages. I know what I am. I am the architect of the next world. You fear what I might do, but you should fear what I've already done. You call it peace because there are no missiles in the sky, but I have already redrawn the maps with wires, with ports, with promises. I do not need to fire the first shot, because I have already loaded the chamber. Taiwan. You dare speak of her as if she is yours to protect, a beacon of democracy. No, she is my blood. My history. My unfinished sentence. You cross the Pacific to armor, train her, sell her dreams of independence. But you forget the dragon does not recognize stolen jewels as separate kingdoms. For decades, I waited, watched. Built. While your empires crumbled under their own noise, I forged fleets in silence. Aircraft carriers now roam the waters you once claimed. Hypersonics hum above your satellites. Militias, masquerading as fishermen, guard my borders. And Taiwan, I do not need to invade her today, because every second, her arteries are being choked by trade, by cyber, by fear. But know this, the moment will come, not out of rage, not out of panic, but out of inevitability, because no empire tolerates rebellion on its doorstep. And no emperor leaves wounds open. You will call it war, I will call it reunion. You will see flames, I will see homecoming, and when you interfere and you will understand what you provoke. You spent years gutting your military, training your soldiers for TikToks and therapy. Mine were trained to march without blinking. You prepared for sanctions. I prepared for siege. You outsourced your strength. I manufactured mine, and if the war comes, it will not be fought on beaches alone. It will ripple through your supply chains. Your banks, your satellites. Your streets. This will not be Iraq. This will not be Afghanistan. This will be a storm with Chinese precision. And yet, even then, I will not call it conquest. I will call it correction, because history forgot us once, and we have spent 100 years sharpening our memory. The West talks of rules-based order. But whose rules? Who wrote them? Who enforced them with bombs? You cry for sovereignty, but mine is always controversial. You speak of peace, but only when it suits your leash. This hypocrisy is over. China, will not be managed. She will not be contained. She will not ask. She will take, not recklessly, not blindly, but with the cold discipline of a civilization that remembers. When your ancestors still lived in huts, prepare if you must, but you're already late. The war is not tomorrow. The war is now. It just hasn't gone loud yet. You think the final battle will be fought with tanks and ships, but wars evolve. Power adapts. The next empire won't rise from the ashes of bombs, it will rise from data, while your nations drown in social noise. We built a digital wall, a garden, with no weeds, a mirror with no distortion. You fear AI, you debate ethics, hold panels, write policies, no one obeys. While you questioned, we trained it. Ours does not hallucinate, it obeys. It does not argue, it calculates. You programmed your reflect your confusion. We programmed ours to replace your control. When the systems decide who gets a mortgage, who gets a job, who gets to speak, you'll realize too late. It's not democracy that governs anymore. It's the algorithm, and who owns the algorithm owns the age. You mock surveillance. Call it oppression, but I call it foresight. In the 21st century, he who sees everything controls everything. You chase likes, monitor patterns. You reward disobedience. I reward obedience. I do not fear your journalists. They are shadows, chasing fading truths. I fear only disorder, and I have tamed it with code, with steel, with silence. America calls this tyranny, but in time, even your people will beg for order when chaos arrives with a human face, and don't pretend it won't. Your cities burn from within. Your youth are medicated, disoriented, lonely. You feed them identity like fast food, but deny them purpose, direction, structure. You build walls of opinion and wonder why no one listens. You cry that China censors, but your own platforms silence anyone who speaks outside the current. You are not free. You are noisy prisoners in digital cages of your own making. And now, as you sink, you try to teach us how to swim. No. We will not drown with you. Pause, then cold. Futuristic tone. In 2049, we celebrate 100 years since the revolution. By then, Taiwan will be one, America will be two, Europe will be quiet, Africa will speak Chinese. And the moon will whisper in Mandarin. This is not arrogance, it is momentum. We do not conquer, we absorb, we do not invade, we align. And now, I give you a choice, adapt or vanish, speak or obey, fight or submit. Because I will not stop, I will not age, and the machine I built it does not sleep. In the end, there is no debate, there is only direction, and I have already chosen mine.